I made two very big decisions when I first got married. And one of them was we wanted my wife to stay at home, you know? Um, that was very difficult because when you're going through financial troubles, you made a commitment to keep your wife at home.
Yeah.
Obviously, if she's helping provide, that's a different story, right? So outside looking in, people are like, well, why doesn't she just go to work,
Yeah.
And it was one of these situations where the enemy's also feeding you why are you doing this, trying to just break
Mm.
your vows, right, and break your
Yes.
your, your rhythm. So that was difficult. Today I'm grateful that we did that, right? My daughter has stayed at home. My wife's been with her since day one. I see the growth in my daughter. She's a passionate believer of Christ. She's a good soul, just a really good girl. And I think a lot of that has to do with those decisions that we made early on. We're sort of making it out of our own will, but now I see God's hand through it all. And we're just grateful we made that decision. We're grateful we had that discernment early on, and we stand by it.
Welcome to The Climb, where I help Christian men live fully, lead boldly, and leave a legacy that matters. I'm your host, Teko Bailey, husband, father, life coach, and your guide in the climb. Whether you're navigating fatherhood, building a business, or simply longing to live more purpose, this is the space to rise.
So in 2007, I got married and we relocated from Miami to Charlotte, North Carolina. During that time, my wife's dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and
Oh,
they gave him a 6-week period to live. So
wow.
it was a very stressful time, obviously. So we were on a big high, just getting married and love, the honeymoon phase, all that stuff. And then at
Come
the
on.
same time, dealing with, death and sickness and illness. So in that time frame, my wife was seeking, right? She really wanted to find the Lord, and she wanted to start going to church, and she needed that help. But I was like, no, we're good people, we really don't need church. Um, and it wasn't until she kind of put the pedal to the metal and was like, I need this regardless of how you think it is. uh,
Yeah.
and in the Carolinas, we saw a sign in the street one day, and it was a church taking place in a movie theater. So we got, we saw the sign. My wife said, "We're going Sunday, no matter what." And long story short, we ended up going to that church. We went one time. I saw people dressed like me, normal, high-fiving us when we walked in,
Come
greeters,
on.
smiles on their faces, just really, really good energy. Completely different from like Catholic churches, which I, kind of would go to, and I liked the vibe. And
Yeah.
I'm the one that ended up falling in love with the church and the community and the
Yeah.
camaraderie of all the people. And ever since 2007, man, stayed committed, stayed faithful, got super involved in the church, started serving, helping out. And it was a blessing because my wife was able to be filled as well during that very difficult season.
So good.
Yep. And then we were here 2007, and then my grandfather gets hit by a car in 2010. 82 years
Whoa.
old, healthy man, gets hit by a car and unfortunately passes away. So
Whoa.
in 2010, my wife and I flew down. We went down to the funeral, and we were surrounded by family and loved ones and friends. And, my wife and I went to sit down on South Beach after the funeral, and we're sitting there, we're having a pitcher of beer, and my wife just starts bawling, crying. And
Whoa.
I just looked at her right away and I said, "You want to move back, don't you?" And she said,
Mm.
"Yes." So that was like, I want to say April 2010. By like July 2010, we were back in Miami, rented out the
Yeah.
house we had owned here in the Carolinas, moved back to Miami. And, I went right back into real estate, which was the industry that I was in. Right back with the same people that I was with, started being successful in the industry.
Yeah.
Um, was part of a large operation where we were buying single family homes for a large real estate investor. And things went well. However, me having gone back as a new person, reborn, in Christ, it was very difficult
Yeah.
to be in the surrounding that I was in. You know, I found myself in some positions where I had to make some really strong decisions, whether
Yeah.
or not I wanted to do as they were doing, whether or not I wanted to chase money, or
Yeah.
whether or not I really wanted to be committed and submissive to the Lord. And it was so difficult that I ended up getting shingles. You know,
Wow.
shingles is something people 50 plus get.
Yeah, that's
I was
right.
in
That's
my
right.
early 30s at the time, and I got shingles, and I never knew it was a stress induced illness, right?
Yes.
So I went to the doctor. Doctor's like, "Hey, what are you stressed about?" And I'm like, "Nothing." Like as men, we hold it all
Yeah.
inside. We don't want to reflect what's going on.
That's
We
right.
just think that stress and life is just something we have to deal with.
All in
you
one.
know you just have to you handle it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's
I was
right.
doing that. I was handling it. I had no community. I had nobody to vent to. uh
Yeah.
Nobody that would understand. So held it all inside, end up with shingles. And then when I was there in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the battle, on some heavy medications that were giving me massive migraines, I started to refocus on life, and I started to say, like, just be submissive. Lord, what is this? What am I doing wrong? Where do you want me? Um, and then just did life, and as I was doing life, the Lord started to just reveal to me that where I wasn't the right place. It started to reveal to me heavier and heavier as they went by, and I ignored it. I'm like, there's no way this can't be the right place. I'm back home where I was born and raised.
Yeah.
I'm around the same friends that've been in my life for years.
Yeah.
Uh, my parents are here, my family's here. Like, how could this not be it? So I would ignore the strong pull from the Lord. And 7 years later, 2017, I made another big real estate move, and I left a certain sector of the industry that I was in, and I went into industrial real estate. I followed a good buddy of mine, went in there, and pretty much I knew that for the first year I was going to make no money. It's one of those, you got to just get in there, develop relationships. So went into that industry, went into industrial, gave everything I had, and basically lived off my savings and ran depleted.
Wow.
Really depleted. Found myself depleted of energy, depleted of motivation, just broken. I don't like to say depressed because I'm a
Yeah.
very happy person.
Yeah.
But the more I analyze depression, the more I realize I was in a very tough
That's what
mental.
was happening.
And
You've said a lot of things that I kind of want to unpack a little bit.
absolutely,
But just before we go into that, could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
absolutely. So my name is Tony Garay. 43 years old. I'll be 44 in September. And I'm a father of one to a beautiful baby girl named
Come
Ava.
on.
Always going to be my baby, but she just turned 13. I'm married in January. We'll be 20 years married. So very, very proud of that. I'm a man that tries to live by, the lineage that Jesus wants, which is God first, wife second, and then my daughter third.
Come
And
on.
it's difficult at times, especially having such a young daughter. Me and my daughter are
Yeah.
very, very close. Um, but the more I try to follow that lineage, the better my relationship with my wife goes.
Come
And
on.
we're both committed to each other. We're both committed to working on ourselves individually.
So
Uh,
good.
so as we work on ourselves individually, the camaraderie gets better between us, you know? And like I said, man, just trying to really focus on God first so that we're not so self-centered in our relationship, but more Christ-centered.
A lot happened in your life when you got married to have to navigate between, was it your wife's dad who had the pancreatic cancer?
Yes,
Because you
sir.
just got married, you're trying to celebrate
Yes, sir.
wedding and all the first love stuff. Um, you want to be focused in that moment. You don't want to be sharing that time with anything or anybody else. But you guys had to navigate between her dad being sick and your grandpa a little bit after that was in an accident, passed away, and then shingles. That's a lot of stuff we're hitting you back to back to back.
Yeah.
Take me through some of those moments. How did you even navigate just being married and then now switching your focus to support your wife as her dad went through that? And then maybe let's talk a little bit more about the shingles, because I think oftentimes we don't realize how the things we're struggling with internally impacts us externally.
100%. And just to add to that before I break it down,
Yeah.
after pancreatic cancer, we moved to the Carolinas. The reason we wanted to move is because we wanted to establish a family and,
Yes.
just get out and have our own life going forward. Struggled to get pregnant. Could not
Whoa.
get pregnant. Infertility issues. We tried IUI procedures 3 and 4 times, investing all the money we had, no
Whoa.
pregnancy. Tried IVF, no pregnancy. It was a super, super difficult time. And to just start with that, we gave it all up. Gave it all up, and
Whoa.
we're like, maybe, having a child is not for us. Let's just live our lives. Let's be happy. And we just prayed about it, let the Lord handle it, and praise God, we got pregnant with one baby girl
Come
and
on.
had a healthy child. And she's 13 now. We haven't been safe since, and we've tried
Yeah.
to get pregnant again, and we could not. So we're so grateful that we have that one baby girl. We call her our miracle child because,
That's right.
if you believe in miracles, man, I mean, we've never gotten
That's right.
pregnant ever since. None of the procedures worked, but we're able to have her. So that's in the midst of that. So, with all the deaths and all that, man, I think the church, church,
Yeah.
being surrounded in community, going to deep, deep Bible studies with friends, and just being vulnerable and real and saying, hey, man, we are struggling with, we can't get pregnant. We're struggling with
Yeah.
my wife having just lost her dad. You know, I didn't grow up in a vulnerable environment, right? I grew
Yeah.
up around very strong men, very loving family, very close knit. We kind of shared problems with each other, but there wasn't a lot of experience in others
Yeah.
to be able to pass that along to you in those times of trouble,
Yeah.
where in church you have a broader audience, right? And people who are not just passionately listening to your issues, but they're also praying for you in those issues,
Come
right?
on.
And my family wasn't a church family, right? There wasn't a lot of faith that was taught to us. So did they go to prayer? I wouldn't say no, but was it the correct prayer, right? Was it really submission in prayer?
Yeah.
You know, so I think definitely that's what got us through. Well, in hindsight, I got saved in 2007, so almost 20 years already. And the more
Yeah.
I learned about submission to Christ, the more I realized that it was all God that's gotten us to where we are. When you're a new believer, you don't really understand the valleys too much,
So
right?
true.
You
So true.
understand you understand the mountaintops, and you understand the blessings. And so many Christians and new believers and lukewarm believers focus very much on the blessings, and that's what they seek.
Yeah.
But our growth comes from the valleys, you know.
Yes.
And when you're a new believer, you're angry at the valleys. You're like, man, if God is real, why am I here? Right?
Yes.
Why am I here? Why am I going through this? I'm trying to submit. I'm trying to put all my faith into you, Jesus. Why do I find myself in this valley, in a continuous one, right? Death after illness, after financial troubles and struggles in my career and trying to find myself. Um, but today I'm grateful for the valleys.
Wow.
I can literally look up, submit, and say thank you. You know,
It brings refinement, eh?
it's like the diamond, right?
Come on.
The diamond has to go through the refinery period to be shiny, beautiful, and bright. And, us humans are the same exact way.
So let me ask you this. You're working, you couldn't have kids at the time. What did the dynamics look like between work life and I guess marriage at the time? Were you the kind of person who were just digging deeper in work, or how did you navigate that time? Because I've had some friends who, at least there's one friend I can think of right now who's kind of navigating that season, and it is tough when you're in that place, especially, I mean, I can't speak for the women, but as a man, I can't imagine not having an offspring. And, I think as men, we take pride in just that journey of life where we have kids and, this is my son or my daughter or, whatever. It's, your name, you're kind of leaving a legacy. When you feel like you can't do that, how do you see yourself? And take me back a little bit into that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you feel a little bit like a failure.
yeah,
There's that. Now I know that it's the enemy,
yeah,
right? Feeding the mind and all the negative stuff. You're not good enough. You have whatever medical issues, might not be able to get pregnant. You know,
yeah,
as men growing up and men who are not biblical, you get a lot of the jokes. Oh, you're shooting blanks, and
yeah,
so you take a lot of that to heart, and people say
yeah,
it in a joking manner, but when you're going through it, you feed off that. It gets into your
yeah,
mind, and you know,
yeah.
and if you allow it, just a glimpse of it, the enemy will
That's
take
right.
that, multiply it. So that was being magnified. And then my wife is also feeling the same thing. So,
Mm,
I'm trying to be her comforter, right?
yeah,
Not wanting her to feel that way, taking the brunt of it. But at the same time, I grew up in Miami, which is very money driven, right?
flashy.
So I'm in career, I'm providing,
That's right.
I'm a new husband. So I'm indulging myself in work and, trying to make that a success.
Yeah,
Um, and then I made two very big decisions when I first got married. And one of them was we wanted my wife to stay at home,
yeah,
you know? Um, that was very difficult because when you're going through financial troubles, you made a commitment to keep your wife at home.
yeah,
Obviously, if she's helping provide, that's a different story, right? So outside looking in, people are like, well, why doesn't she just go to work?
yeah.
And it was one of these situations where the enemy's also feeding you why are you doing this? Trying to just break
Mm,
your vows, right? And break your
yes,
your, your rhythm. So that was difficult. Um, but today I'm grateful that we did that, right? My
yes,
my daughter has stayed at home. My wife's been with her since day one. I see the growth in my daughter. She's a passionate believer of Christ. She's a good soul, just a really
yes,
good girl. And I think a lot of that has to do with those decisions that we made early on, which we quite didn't understand at the time. We're sort
yeah.
of making it out of our own will, but now I see God's hand through it all.
So
Um,
good.
and we're just grateful we made that decision. We're grateful we had that discernment early on, and we stand by it. It's something it's truly unexplainable. And when it's unexplainable, that it's coming from the Lord.
Well, God is ordering your steps, even if you don't get an exact script to follow, but you're trusting Him as you go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time I knew I had to trust him, but at
Yes,
the same time I was sort of doing things on my own power and trying to control. But like I said, going back now to almost 20 years in the faith, now I see it. I say, I was voluntarily going through the motions, but allowing the Lord to lead, you know?
it,
Yeah.
I love it. I love your story and just how, as you look back in hindsight, because you've had so many teachable moments. Uh, Take me back to Miami and Shingles, because internally you're dealing with stress and you don't even know it's stress.
That's 100% fact.
Talk
Yeah.
to me about that.
Well, I mean, when you grow up in an environment that, when we grew up, I'm an 80s baby, right? I was born 81. You know, men, carry that weight.
That's
Carry
right.
that weight. Don't
That's right.
complain. Get after it. Make it happen. I mean, all that pressure, and like now I realize that's all false. Like it's not on our own power. So at the
Yeah,
time I didn't realize I was carrying all that. I was just doing what I was taught, what I saw. They say more is caught than taught.
that's
So
right.
even though technically my family, my dad wasn't really teaching me that, I was catching the way they were living, right? They were living in a very stressed out, vulnerable state.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and Shingles reflected my control. I
Mm,
was I was trying to control the infertility. I was
Yeah.
trying to control my career, my financial outcome. I was trying to control my perception to people of success, because
Yeah.
Miami's a very money-driven place. If you're not driving the right vehicle, wearing the right watch, it's frowned upon. You're not going to get the business. It's, people interpret success with fashion, with the way you carry yourself,
That's right.
so it's a hard environment to succeed in. So I was carrying that. I was trying to control all of that, and my body reflected that, you know. And ever since that happened, I've always told my friends the same, and it's give God your attention. Don't make God get your attention, you know.
Mm.
And I think God forced my attention upon him, you know. Thank God he forced my submission
Yeah.
through illness. I was feeling so sick, so down. But think about it, the bills are still coming.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Life is
Yeah.
still coming at you. Your problems are still there.
Yeah.
So as men, we want to fight that and go out and get it. Where he put me in in rock bottom, where I was just like, I fully submit to you. Heal me, help me figure out where I want to be. Help me get out of this mess.
Isn't it interesting when we lose everything that kind of makes us who we are, and God kind of brings us to that place where we're like, no, you can't survive without me. Like, whether you knew it or not before, now you know it.
Yes, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like literally the best thing that's ever happened to me. It opened my eyes to submission,
Yes.
true submission. I think, the majority of Christians, right? We know the word, we try to understand the word, but we make the word to our understanding,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
our environment, to our situations, and we try to apply the right Bible verses and stuff to our current situations,
Yes.
right? But the Bible was written at different times during different situations.
That's right.
And when you start to study that, then you start to really understand what the real interpretation of the verses are, you know?
Yes.
And then things start to make sense and it starts to create more clarity. And you start to realize that a lot of the verses that you're applying to your life, if you were trying to control your life, those verses will not apply, because in the flesh, we don't reap the benefits of those verses, right?
So true.
When you die to yourself in the flesh and you live spiritually and submit and you allow the Holy Spirit to lead your life, now those verses all come
Come
in
alive.
full effect. They
Yep.
come alive. That was a very, very good way to put it. They come alive. When you witness that, you don't want to go back. You know, unfortunately, we go back because we're human and we fall out of the spirit. That's why the Bible says, die to yourself daily, right? It's
Yes.
a daily practice from the moment we wake up in the morning. Lord, may I die to my flesh today, my sinful nature, take over and lead me, guide me, and teach me. Where do you want me today? You know, and when I started to do that, my life started to change. Right? Me trying to control my finances, I found myself in tough financial situations. Now I find myself with financial blessing. You know, my marriage, my
Yes.
infertility. When I let go
Yes.
control, God blessed us with a child, healthy
That's
child,
right.
right? Um, going back to Miami in 2010, we went back. But you know what? The Lord told me, I got you out of Egypt. Miami was my Egypt.
Yes.
And I put myself back into Egypt.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? I put myself back into Egypt where the Lord had released me from. And I
You
didn't
you you want
understand
you
at the
want
time.
those leeks and onions, eh?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And then when I found myself after trying to, make a big career change into industrial real estate, found myself in a very vulnerable, financially horrible situation, I
Yeah.
started to submit to the Lord again. And the
Yeah.
Lord revealed into me immediately on the couch with my wife one day. And he said, you need to go back to the Carolinas.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And I looked at my wife and I said, we got to go back to the Carolinas. And she's like, how? We don't have any money to relocate right now. How are we going to do
Yeah.
this? And she's like, I don't know if I want to go back, you know? And I said, well, this is in my heart. This is what I think we need to do. We went to prayer. We did it. December 20, that was like October
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
December 2017, I was back in the Carolinas, living in a beautiful place that we didn't think we could afford. And the Lord blessed
Wow.
it. You know, found myself with, I had gone into a corporate environment job that helped me relocate over there. You know, I wasn't a corporate guy. I was always self-employed. Took a corporate job because I was like, you know what, I'm going to give up my entrepreneurial dreams.
Yeah.
I don't think this is what the Lord wants me. I need stability in my life. Again, I was trying to control the situation. Even though I was submitting to the Lord on the relocation, I was still
Yes.
trying to control. Put myself in an environment that I was not happy in.
Yeah.
Through that path, at a birthday party one day, I meet the owner of a roofing company. And he saw something in me right away and he started to pursue me. And I was like, I don't want to be in roofing.
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah.
you know? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. You don't have to get on the roof. You can fly a drone. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know technology. You know, I've never flown a drone in my life. I gave all the excuses in the book. And
Yeah.
for some reason, he continued to pursue me until he convinced me and I made the leap and I went into it like as a part-time basis, as a side
Yeah.
hustle,
Yeah.
got into it, started to enjoy it, and ended up pursuing it full time. And let me tell you the moral of this story, Tico. I have been able to bless and to minister to so many people in the
Wow.
roofing industry.
Wow.
Customers that I go to, like I'm just myself, and like the spirit just reveals himself through me to other people. And for some reason, they're vulnerable. They speak to me about their personal lives, random strangers.
It
And yeah, you know, I seize the moment, right? I seize the moment. I say, okay, this is a roofing sale. I put it
yeah.
aside. It's not what's important here. And I just give them my full undevoted attention. And it's made a huge impact. And then looking
It's
back at
funny.
that, go ahead.
It's funny you say that because I was at a conference in California in San Jose earlier this year, a global leadership conference, and a lady, I can't remember her name, she also runs a real estate company. And she told a similar story that when she went into real estate, the Lord challenged her to say, everybody who you meet, whether it's a workman who work for you, or the persons who you sell the home to, or other people in between, I've put you in this place to pray for them. You're not just selling homes, you're doing more than that. So, I kind of hear you echoing that similar kind of mindset.
Yeah, that's when you know it's from the Lord.
That's right.
You say, oh, I took this for financial gains, but then you're gaining more people for, for the kingdom. And
So
then I'm like,
true.
man, now, so when people ask me, how'd you get into roofing? I'm like, I give them all this whole spiel. But then in reality, it's where the Lord put me, right? It's like, it's evident. It's where the Lord put me. So I was with that company for 6 years. I left last year. I opened up my own roofing company and now I'm doing it for myself. And I'm back into that entrepreneurial place where I thought I wasn't fit for anymore. You know, I took the stability and my stability, I was trying to control it through a corporate job. And God's like,
Yes.
no, you got it wrong again. I'm your stability, you know?
So
So now
good.
he's giving me peace of mind. He's giving me the health, no more shingles, no more holding that stress inside of myself. I fully submitted to God. Right now, we're in a slow period. I fully submitted. I know
Yes.
God is the provider, right? I'm
That's
not the
right.
provider. It's his business, not mine. So it allows me to flow in the spirit and not try to control and go crazy in the slow periods, and try to make, moves on my own.
How would you speak to the businessman that is finding that difficult to do? When you run a business, your aim is to make profit and, keep growing. How do you balance the flexibility between hearing God and, you know, achieving your goals at the same time, growing the business? What could be some of the challenges in that, and how have you navigated that so far?
Yeah, I think that the way to navigate it is to work on yourself personally more than you work on the business. So I'll give you an example of that. 7 years ago, I joined a group called F3.
Yes.
And the three F's stand for fitness, fellowship, and faith. And this group of men changed my life. I moved here to North Carolina. I didn't have my network of men. I didn't have my dad. My uncles were very tight. So I
Yeah.
came here and I didn't really have a network of men. And I went to start exercising with this group that I had heard of. They work out at 5:30 in the morning. And I was like, oh man, I'm not a morning person. You know, all the excuses the enemy wants to tell you. But I sacrificed and I made it happen. And you find yourself around entrepreneurs, corporate guys, teachers, lawyers, all men who are trying to figure out the same thing you're trying to figure out. As
Yes.
you put yourself into this bubble of men who are all vulnerable and trying to figure it out together, now you realize you're not alone. You know,
Yes.
it's not just me that's going through this. This is a global issue, right?
That's right.
Um, the more you try to work on yourself, the more the enemy is going to feed doubt. If you try to handle that doubt on your own, the enemy has you right where he wants you. And that was me for a very long time. That's how I got shingles.
Yeah.
When I discovered this network of men, and all these men were not like I was raised. They're not trying to handle it on their own. You're not out there a warrior by yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And so for men, all vulnerable, all being submissive to listen to the Lord and let him guide their steps. So if you work on yourself individually through exercise, through reading, through the word, through meditation, you know, once you start to do all that, the answers on how to operate your business during difficult times, how to launch a new business, all those answers start to come, right? But when we're not working on ourselves individually, when we're not exercising, eating right, you know, loving on our wives and loving on our kids, when you're not
Yeah.
doing that, you're struggling to find those answers and you think you're going to find them on your own, you know, but it's when you submit and you let go of all that, that you work on yourself individually, you start to hear clearly, you know. And I think that's what did it for me. You know, I had to really take my eyes off of the finances of the business, of just career, right? In this world, in this country particularly, we're pushed that success is your career, right? Like, man, I'm a full-time husband, like full-time husband. I'm constantly trying to better my marriage.
So
I'm a
good.
full-time father. I'm always around my daughter. She goes to work with me. I take her to dance every day. You know, I made those my priority. So I'm
Yeah.
like, if I take a corporate 9 to 5 job behind a desk, I can't be there for my kids, right? Yeah, I could go make money. I can have a stable paycheck, but the lifestyle that I want to have, which is have my wife at home and be there for my daughter, I need to take a big risk financially. I need to be an entrepreneur. I need to create my own schedule, my own lifestyle, live
Yeah.
life by design. So when you want to design your own life, you have no choice but to submit to a higher power, right? You have to allow somebody else to guide your steps so all those
You,
things can work.
you've been through a lot of ups and downs just listening to your story, both in family, in your personal life, and in your life, your walk with the Lord. For the man who is a father, or just any man, whatever season he's in right now, what are some steps he could take to kind of um, get to where he needs to get to if he's feeling stuck in the valley? Are there resources? Are there maybe books that you read? What are some practical tools or steps that you think he could take to kind of move into that direction?
The first step I would say is learn about Jesus Christ. And I know it sounds cliche. It sounds, oh man, you know, all these Christians are always trying to save people, but learn about it. If you don't have a relationship with him,
Yeah,
why? You know, what have you heard? What have you seen from other Christians that pushes you away from wanting a relationship? You know,
yeah,
uh, unfortunately, I feel like in America, we do a bad job at reflecting Christ. You know, I see it in the churches that I've attended, you know, people that are around, they talk about it, but they don't really reflect it well.
Yeah.
and not that I fall apart all the time. Nobody's perfect, but I feel that the first thing to do is really understand it. If it's to not believe in him, understand why you don't believe in him. And if it
Yeah.
is, then believe in him. Once you have that understanding, if you feel like this is something that can help you, get involved in a local church. You know, the local church has a bad name, especially in America. A lot of hypocrisy. People think they're better than others, but
Yeah.
don't let a couple of rotten apples, ruin the bunch. Because
That's right.
if you focus on that first, right, I think that's the first step to fully understanding that we are not in control, right?
Yes.
Every single day, we're in a big spiritual battle. Whether you're a believer in a higher power or not, we're in a spiritual battle. Good and evil exists, right?
That's right.
So if you're on your own and you're battling the evil, you're going to get eaten alive. I don't care how good you are, right? If you find yourself, having a relationship with God, like I have, for instance, then you can battle that spiritually, right? When you first taste that and you see how things start to flow in your life in a positive direction, then you have a new understanding of how everything works for the kingdom, right? Business. Then you can
Yes.
start reaching out to resources that are going to help you establish a business. You know,
Yes.
I first got into business was when I was 21 years old. I opened up my own operation in the auto accessory business. I had no relationship with a God. I was surrounded by people who were money driven, and I did
Yeah.
everything wrong. I didn't have financial background. I didn't understand what a good CPA, financial consultants. I didn't understand all of the elements that you need to be successful in business. I was good at convincing people to do things, and I just chased that, right? So for those that are looking for the resources, it starts with a relationship with God. You know, the Bible is the best resource. The Bible has more financial and business content than you can ever look for in social media and everything,
So
right?
true.
And then once you start having a relationship with God, start studying the word, then you surround yourself with community. You surround yourself with like-minded Christian men who are vulnerable and submissive, who are running their own businesses and operations. And then you start to get advice from good counsel, right? People who are going to, they're not money driven, they're kingdom driven.
That's right.
When you think that way, God wants to bless you financially so that you can impact the kingdom. So now we no longer want money for the nice cars, nice watches, all that stuff. We want money so that we can put it back into the kingdom and bless others, right? Whether that be through donating, whether that be through helping people start businesses, right? There's so many opportunities to impact the kingdom and impact the world
Yeah.
that is when you have that understanding of what money's a tool, right? People think, money is the root of all evil, and it is not. The love of money is the root of all evil,
That's right.
right? God wants to bless us financially. He wants us to be blessed. We need to have an understanding as to why, So once you grasp that understanding, you have the right resources and the right community, then you start to have a good relationship with money. And now you can be a big, big impact.
I love it. I love how you break it down and put it into steps. It's always good to see the building blocks of how you practice any healthy relationship or address any area in life in a healthy way. I love the step-by-step procedures you give. As we're wrapping up, how would you encourage the dads and the husbands in their marriage and in their parenting?
I think that the lineage of the way God explains things is for a reason, right?
Yeah,
Putting your wife first, a lot of us fail to do that. Number one, we want to put ourselves first.
yeah,
So number two, we want to put our kids first, right? But if we put God first and then our wives before our kids and ourselves, the wife is so important, man. The
yes,
wife, the wife to be mentally stable, to be a presence in the home, to be loved. What you get in return allows us to go out and just flow in the right way that we need to.
yes.
So if you're in a long-term marriage or newlywed, invest in your marriage. Investing in your marriage is so important. Um, Having a partner, a good, trustworthy source that's gonna not just be there for you and support you, support your household. If
Yeah.
your household is out of order, you're gonna be out of order. You
Yes.
can't operate your business in the right way, right? Get your household in order, which starts with your wife. Um, then you two together flowing in the right way are going to bless your child.
That's right.
You're going to bless your child. Your child, like I said, more is caught than taught. What your child sees when you and your spouse are loving each other, they're going to pick that up. They're going to feel that. When they feel love like that, they're going to now go and be good students. They're going to want to learn. They're going to want to, be better human beings.
They're
When
secure.
there's disorder at home, all of a sudden they're having trouble figuring out life, rightfully
Yeah.
so, right?
Yeah.
They don't get that. So the reason that lineage exists, the reason that order that God demands is because when everything is flowing the right way, everybody around us is blessed. Our neighbors, our kids, our families, it's that. And the reason I break it down, like you said, you enjoy, is because I never understood that. I heard it a million times, but I'm a
Yeah.
slow learner, right? I have to see things. I have to go through the pain in order to figure it out. And I wish I would have had somebody say, no, stop. Don't feel bad for not understanding it. It's complicated. Be
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Here are the steps. you know you need clarity. You need to free your mind from all the nonsense and all the news and information we're being fed constantly. You got to shut that all off, unlearn everything we've learned, and then allow this new knowledge and this new breakdown of things to be able to make an impact. When you learn that simple concept, man, blessings come to you. You just start to really learn. um God first, wife second, your kids third, and you're last. And
Come
money
on.
will
Come on.
come after that.
It's there.
Money will
It
come
will
after that.
find, it will fall into place.
It will fall into place, man, when you do the right order, you know?
Tony, this has been such a powerful podcast with you, packed with a lot of nuggets and just deep insight. I really love how you talk about the past and just show us how you've navigated through those seasons and been able to separate what's good from what's not good and what to keep so we can grow as mature people in our relationship with God. This has been just a pleasure having you here, and I'm really honored that you were able to join us on the climb. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I appreciate it.
Nico, appreciate you, and I appreciate your platform and what you're doing for men out there. Don't stop, man. Stay in the word, stay doing what you're doing. Forget the 99, go after the one.
Thank
Don't
you.
get caught up. Thousands are listening to this. There's just one person that's going to hear it, that you're going to change their life forever, man.